Hello on the Rockers. We're going to have a very good time and get mighty legendary with our Spill the Tea session with RuPaul's Drag Race alum and drag superstar Honey Davenport with my guest co-host today, horror film guru and editor-in-chief of Bear World magazine, John Hernandez, and me, your favorite host with the sassy most. Raise a glass and let the drinks begin. It's On the Rocks.
Thank you for being
Boulevard.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Ooh, buns and bows and pantyhose. On the Rocks podcast, a place where we're too glam to give a damn. Why, oh, why do I continue to watch The Real Housewives of anything? It's an addiction. I keep saying no more, and there I am until 2 a.m. watching. Did you hear the news? OC Housewife... How dare you? OC housewife Shannon Bedore got arrested for a DUI after being a complete mess on the current season, and then in real life she's doing it. Allegedly, we have to say allegedly, she hasn't been to court yet. She smashed into a house in Newport Beach, fled the scene just far enough, then got out of her car, took her dog out of the back seat, and started walking her dog around drunk, allegedly. So it would seem that it couldn't have been her that smashed into the house because she was busy walking her dog in a different neighborhood. Animal Services are literally looking into it. Girl, what is wrong with you? Leave the dog out of it. Take an Uber with all your Bravo money. I don't have Bravo money, and I Uber every way. Girl, I'm still watching The Housewives. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at On The Rocks On Air, and on Facebook On The Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email. Book me for a pride, wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I'll be there and MC. Also, send us your comments, guest requests, and your guest questions. We got some burning questions today. Info at OnTheRocksRadioShow.com. The show's presented by Straw Hat Media. You can watch and or listen to our over now 300 episodes at OnTheRocksRadioShow.com. We tape the show at UBN Go Studios in the heart of Burbank. You can watch us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV on the Outlet.tv app, Facebook Watch, streaming with pride on SVTV, and on Channel 31 on the East Coast. Lucky you, East Coast. All right, let's get the show on the road. My co-host today, hot off the plane from New York, John Hernandez, is the editor-in-chief of Bear World magazine. And in addition to bear culture, he specializes in entertainment writing with a special focus on horror and genre films. He's also the creator of the first gay bear horror host. Say that 3 times fast. Gay bear horror host, Stan the Mechanic, which is our gay bear version of Elvira. We're going to talk more about that. Please welcome John Hernandez. Now, are you like really a Hernandez? Like you have Latino culture?
Absolutely. I'm half Puerto Rican, honey.
Which half? The top or the bottom half?
The top half.
Ooh. Gucci. Okay. So you got that Puerto Rican flair, in the bear community flair. Like you got a little bit of everything.
Oh, yeah. You know, hot-tempered, hot and furry, all that good stuff.
Some of my favorite things. And you are the new editor-in-chief at Bear World magazine, which is the magazine for the bear community and their admirers. And it's been around for a while. How does it feel to take on this, like, this mega brand?
It's a great honor. I've been working with them for over 8 years at this point, so I was kind of in on the ground floor, and I slept my way to the top. I mean, my husband Richard is the founder of it, so but we've been working together on it for almost a decade, and I took over in March, and we just celebrated 11 years at Bear World.
Congratulations. In fact, we have a picture of your first cover that you did for the magazine. Now, I want to ask you, with our current focus on body positivity, inclusivity, etc., there's your first cover as editor-in-chief. Right. You know, all of this talk about body positivity, how is that affecting the bear community and your magazine? Is it bringing more people, or is it kind of diluting it because now we're all celebrating bigger bodies on all different platforms? We don't need a genre specific.
I think it's bringing more people to the party, absolutely. And in fact, we're kind of having to circle back to make sure all of our lovely muscle bears know that they're welcome in the community, too. And we do a lot of focus to make sure we feature bears of color, trans bears. We try to be very diverse and inclusive because as much as I love the bear community, they have their issues. And we address that at the magazine because that's what we believe in. So
I love that. I in the past have been asked to MC a number of bear events. I don't really, I'm always in a bow tie and I'm always whatever. And so I've had my issues and I haven't felt that welcomed because it's well, you're not our bear. You're not, jumping in the pool with no clothes on and you don't have the leather harness. I don't know anything leather except my wallet. So it's but I have sometimes felt not so included. But I feel that that's definitely changed. I'm talking about this was 10 years ago. This has definitely changed. And we're seeing now bears, even in mainstream pride stuff where it used to be, okay, this is your bear event. Bears go play over there. Twinks go play over there. Now everybody's kind of playing on open fields.
Yeah, I agree, and I love to see it. In fact, the bear community, I was just at a World Bear Weekend, shout out, this last weekend in Orlando, Florida, and there are mama bears, and there's a very big move to welcome in the pet community. So there were, cis women competing, and our trans siblings were competing for titles, and they've been enveloped into the bear community, and it's beautiful. The more the merrier. It was a community that was founded because we didn't feel like we fit into the mainstream, gay body type and physicality and culture. And then for us as a community to turn around and try to exclude people is bullshit, frankly. So so I'm glad that that's all changing. It's a sign of the times.
Well, congratulations. Can't wait to see what you're going to be doing with the magazine. Okay, who the hell is Stan the Mechanic? That's your alter ego.
Yes.
Who is that? What's going on?
That's the Superman to my Clark Kent. He is the one and only satanic mechanic. He is a horror host that I invented during the pandemic. He kept me busy. Basically, the story is, he's got a workshop in Brooklyn, and it's under the guise of being a mechanic shop, but really, he just hangs out with all the demons in the paranormal community and watches some horror movies and gives some stupid trivia and, some slutty, sexy gags because, it's what makes him a bit different is where Elvira, they flirt with the line to take a line from Bianca Del Rio. Stan crosses it and then snorts it. That's kind of...
I love when people at parties ask me, would you like to do coke? It's bitch, does that look like I do coke? I mean, come on. But I love it because you're doing that vein like Vampira and then Elvira. I love that. That was a culture that I just love because it's super gay. But then we get, to delve into the horror genre, which has so much history and it's so rich of, goodness.
Oh, yeah. And it's super queer. They just did a documentary, Queer for Fear, and they trace the roots. The Gothic horror is all written by queers, and Frankenstein, Mary Shelley was a big old queer. Yep. And, Bram Stoker, it's rumored that he was also, bi at the very least. So we've been there since the beginning, and it's definitely a big queer community that just, loves the dark side of things. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Now, how did your fascination with horror start? Were you a little kid and you watched your first...
Yeah. I remember, not to get all sappy about it, but, me and my dad didn't have many things that we bonded over, but one thing that he really did enjoy when I was a kid was Halloween, and he took me and my brother trick-or-treating a lot, and so that I think that's really what spurned it forward, and... I remember watching them on VHS. We used to record them off the TV, back in the day, back in the 80s. And I just loved it. I love that feeling. And you just chase that high of getting scared like that for the rest of your life. That's kind of what we all are. We're horror junkies.
100%. We're going to talk horror films with Honey, by the way. We're going to pick our favorite horror films and the queerest. If you were to be able to say something to Jamie Lee Curtis, what would you say?
I would thank her, number one, which sounds trite and boring, but it really is true. You have your heroes out there, and it goes beyond her just being the star of my favorite scary movie. She's used her platform in such ways that it's so inspiring. Talk about an ally for the queer community.
100%.
Her daughter is trans. She's out there on the front line for us. And she does a lot of work with Children's Hospital LA. She's out there, with the SAG actors,
and with her debit card, by the way.
Yeah, so she puts her money where her mouth is, and I appreciate and respect that. So I would thank her for her integrity and for remembering us when she made her frickin' Oscars acceptance speech. She remembered the genre fans, which no other bitch in Hollywood is going to remember us. So Big
I love
props
that.
to Jamie Lee Curtis.
We love you, Jamie Lee. Are you ready? Are you ready for the lady of the hour?
So ready.
All right, please welcome Honey Davenport. With over a decade of experience in the entertainment industry, James Heath Clark, a.k.a. Honey Davenport, has left an indelible mark on the New York City nightlife scene and beyond, touring the world as a singer, dancer, actor, drag superstar, and club DJ. They are recording artists and vocal activists whose music speaks to the experiences of the oppressed, calling for social injustice and equality for all, and that's not something new. We're going to talk about her childhood and how this all came out. Davenport holds 18 pageant crowns, 6 Glam Awards, and a 2020 Giant Fest Award for Music Artist of the Year. Also, zero tolerance for discrimination. Hey, girl. Since appearing on season 11 of RuPaul's Drag Race, they have released 9 singles, and her latest EP, Love is God, features appearances from Manila Luzon and Jackie Cox and Kevin Aviance. Additionally, they've appeared as a guest panelist on VH1's Black Girl Beauty, will appear in the upcoming feature, God Save the Queens. And during the pandemic, when we were all depressed, her digital content was featured in Rolling Stone, Pink News, and Billboard, who called them a practical master class. With ass, by the way. That's what I added. So you can put On the Rocks added that. P.S. Off-Broadway theater credits include leading roles in Electric Highway and Trinkets, as well as a major role in the Orion Experience, which mixes sci-fi with a little drama. We're going to talk about that as well. They also performed in the Broadway National Tour of Hairspray, fresh out of college. I wonder what shenanigans came out from that. New York Magazine has called Davenport one of the top 100 most powerful drag queens in America. Paper Magazine called them a New York icon, and RuPaul's Drag Race declared Davenport legendary. This week, her collab with Mistr, your online prep resource, by the way, and Alaska, titled Mighty Legendary, hit the media waves. Let's take a little look at Mighty Legendary.
They say I'm very legendary. I'm realer than the rest, and all these girls would never test me. I'm I'm mighty legendary. You try, but you can't best me. Crown on my head is heavy.
And you can find a few of our past On the Rock friends in the background. Dakota Payne, hey girl. Please welcome Honey James Heath Clark Davenport.
Hey.
Okay, before we get into drag and your career, P.S. I'm really excited about this because we're drinking vodka, and I know you're very outspoken and you're very honest, so we got a show for you today. I'm going to talk about your early days, though. Born and raised in West Philadelphia, you've talked about growing up in the projects. That is a far cry from the runway. Talk about what it was like growing up where you did and some of the themes that you had to deal with as a kid early on where the rest of us are like, what?
Right? Yeah. I think as a kid, we're all like, what? Right? We're all trying to figure out our place in this world. And I think that nowadays, we have put a lot of things in place to affirm kids in a way that didn't exist when I was younger. And that conversation is created. I remember growing up in West Philadelphia feeling very different than everybody. That, you know, I had a family who loved me. I had friends, but I just always felt so strange. I didn't identify as non-binary growing up, and I think that played a huge role on that because I never felt like a male or female. I just felt foreign.
And we never had that language. Like, how exciting is it now? Kids have a language to be like, this is what I feel like.
Yeah, this is what I feel. This is who I feel that I am, you know. And, you know, I was just having this conversation on the way here with a trans sister of mine. And, you know, a trans journey really starts mentally. A transition is really is mental, you know. And non-binary people are just as trans as a trans woman or a trans man. You know, if we don't include non-binary people on the trans spectrum, then we're also kind of saying like Marsha P. Johnson wasn't trans in a way because same, like, you know.
And you were dealing with all these kind of issues while there's like gun warfare and there's like death around you. Like, this is what you have to do with a kid. Like, when I was a kid, if our Disney Channel cut off, like, I was really depressed. Like, that's what I was going through.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a hood as fuck area, which I'm super proud of, and I'm super grateful that I came from that. I think it's made me into who I am.
Gotta give you a thick skin.
You know, I gave me a lot of thick things. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
West Philadelphia. That's my next Bucket
know,
list.
it's a
I wouldn't
good.
last 10 minutes.
I mean, or would you? But yeah, there wasn't a lot of conversation or people to affirm my feelings about who I am and who I was, and it definitely led me down a road of insecurities. And I remember when I first moved to New York, I moved to New York at 18, and I just felt the ability to be queer for the first time,
It's like when Dorothy opens up the door and it's all color and it's like a whole new world.
Can't you feel the brand new day?
Guess the Wiz is coming back to Broadway. I'm shitting my pants.
Oh my gosh! And I just auditioned right here. Right. That was my audition. Call me.
Yeah. Booked and blessed.
I actually just was in New York doing a workshop for a new Broadway musical.
I heard through the grapevine. That's what you were doing.
And I've been talking with my original theater agent, who's represented me since I was 21 years old.
Wow.
Yesterday,
Right. A year's gone by.
Right? And she was has just been over the moon at my kind of return to musical theater, which I didn't think that I left, but I definitely put more of my focus on drag and creating my own music and my own lane for sure. So yeah.
We're going to talk about your musical theater past and college, but you also grew up with these facets of what we would call masculine versus feminine. And I will talk about how this plays a place in the bear community as well. You boxed when you were a kid. That was one of your hobbies. You were in junior ROTC, which if you know anybody that was in ROTC, it was like, man. But you also did spoken word. You were in the church choir. You were writing music very early on, which is more creative side. With what society was teaching us, how you grow up to be a boy, especially in the kind of environment you are in, or were in the projects, it's like, this is what a man looks like, this is what a boy looks like. You kind of had these two worlds that were colliding. How did you deal with that, and how did that play a part in your coming out?
I think that growing up, I was a part of so many things because I was trying to figure out who I am, who I was, so I was like, try everything until something sticks. But the thing about me is that I'm committed. When I'm in it, I'm in it. And
you make it work.
Right, So I would keep, in my yearbook, I remember I was in every club picture. I was in the band club and the yearbook club, and I was vice president and also homecoming king and prom king.
Were you really?
Yeah.
You bitch.
I was
in chess club in the corner of the picture of one.
If we had a chess club, I would have been in that too.
I've been the queen. Checkmate.
Right. I was trying to figure out who I was, and especially with the ROTC stuff, when I was...
That's a tough community, because they're for real. Even junior ROTC, I remember, they were the kids that they were for real.
And I wasn't just in ROTC, I was a commander of my squadron. So, I mean, these really butch guys were taking commands from me, and I was already super me.
Practice for the future.
I was just going to say, some things don't change.
Okay.
Dominatrix Davenport.
So my life has always had that kind of juxtaposition of both things. It was really a path of self-discovery and trying so many things. It's really created who I am today,
Well, and when you look at all the, you're an actor, singer, music writer, it's all of these adjectives, and it's because you're able to do that. And we know now in the entertainment industry, you can't just do that one thing. Judy Garland today would be like, I got to do social media. Oh, my God, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? It's like, we have to be a master of all trades. And I would talk about the bear community, because we know the early years of the bear community, it was big, brass, and beautiful, but it was beards and it was hair. Has that kind of changed with the non-binary community becoming... I know you said, contestants are now changing, but the community as a whole, are we appreciating the feminine side of being a bear?
We're making moves. I wouldn't say it's perfect. There's still a lot of issues around, the old regime still prefers hypermasculinity. But I do see a lot more bears out there, painting their nails, using non-binary they, them pronouns. One of my closest friends is non-binary. And they went out to Bear Week Concerned in P-Town or whatever, and they were embraced. There is more of it. There's a long way to go, but we're making strides,
I think as long as we're communicating and sharing our stories, I think sometimes we're so afraid to ask questions. Non-binary to somebody like me who came out when it was like, you're either gay or straight. And if you said you were bi, people laughed. You're like, you're gay. We're just going to wait a few years, right?
Right.
And we didn't have this kind of language. That's my generation. So to grasp it is very new for me. But it's like I should be able to ask questions from my own community. What's this? What's that? And it's like, I had a trans friend who said, I am so tired of having to educate people when they ask me questions about being trans. So I'm like, that's kind of our role as the LGBTQ community. We should take every opportunity to share our story and to educate people in a positive way. Of course it's exhausting, but that's our duty if we want change to happen. Okay, we'll talk about your first exposure to drag, your first time seeing it. Was it when you were a kid? Was it, a skit on SNL? What was that?
I mean, we all grew up watching like Bugs Bunny, right?
Yeah. Talk about the biggest homo.
Yes.
If anybody was a homo, what's up, Doc? Always the carrot? Come on.
She was a good drag queen.
She was.
And so well celebrated, too.
Right. But the very first drag queen I ever saw perform was actually a New York City nightlife legend, Shaquita. She was performing in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Fringe Festival. She was singing opera. And she's an incredible New York City performer, a legend in her own right. But I was taken under the wing of New York City nightlife legend Peppermint. Yes. That was when I really got
backup
exposed.
dancer.
Yeah, I was dancing in a nightclub one night, and Pep came over to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to perform with me at Lincoln Center?" And I was like, "What? Wow. Yeah."
You're like, bucket list, check.
I mean, let's go.
Yeah.
And so I went to rehearsals with Pep, and I started dancing for her. And then she took me literally all over the world. She took me to London and Dublin and Berlin and Sydney. Before she was on Drag Race, she was already a huge drag superstar. And I always joke with her that, like, I rode the Peppermint train into drag because, like, my life as it is and how fast it was for me to make a name for myself in New York City was really because of Peppermint taking me under her wing. Even with as much contribution as I have from my drag family, the Davenports, right. Peppermint is a mother to me.
And you also worked with Sherry Vine, when we talk about people who have really laid the roots for drag, and Peppermint with the trans community. Mm-hmm. This is our community that's supposed to be supporting our community, not worried about, God, honey's going to take the spotlight away from me. I mean, look at her go. It's like support. Let's grow, because if we all succeed, we all succeed.
Right. I think that the thing about that is when you are from a community whose space has been limited in the world and you get a little piece of it, you hold on to that and you fight for that, and you think that if anybody else
That's a good point,
gets
too.
a second of that, it might diminish yours. And the reality is that success is only because of the people before us who created space for us. And there's some really legendary queens like Sherry and Pep who've just continually created space for a new generation of drag. That's really one of my favorite things about drag, honestly, is that when I started drag, there wasn't like, you could find how to do your makeup on YouTube, and like people weren't.
None of that.
There was none of that. You had to go and you had to sit in the dressing room at Esquilita while Sahara Davenport painted her face as she yelled at you about how you were awful at this until you got it. Like that. It was a passed down art form. I think the last passed down art form, because now you can go to college, and there's college courses on Drag Race, by the way.
100%.
Like
100%.
Just it's become
part of TV history now.
Yeah, it's become a legitimate platform for art now, just like playing the flute, and I think that's because of the doors and the space that have been continually thrown open. And I think that the more success we get, the more if we continually do that, more we'll see it in even further heights.
Let's go back just a little bit, because like you said, you moved to New York at 18. You studied at EMDA, musical theater. Was that transition to New York hard at all?
Oh my God, it was terrifying. It was terrifying for the first 2 nights, and then I realized
two nights. People are like, my first 2 years were rough. I aged 40 years. You're like 2 nights.
There was 2 nights, and
until my grinder got synced, and we were fine.
Hello. And then I realized I had this hot, very hung guy across the hall from me in my dorms, and I was like, I'm safe.
You came home with your booty out. Hey, girl, I lost my key again.
Right? But the first couple of nights in New York, for real, were just a weird adjustment. I remember when my mom and my uncle, rest in peace, he just passed away, pulled off from dropping me off, I just sobbed the entire night. Like, I just was so terrified and so nervous. And then I realized I lived in a city I could walk around in like a hot pink shirt and my tights and nobody judged me. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah.
They probably didn't even notice. They're like, oh, okay.
They're like, whatever.
Like, I have out shit to do.
Just move past my way, man.
Yeah. No, I don't know where you grew up.
Born and raised in New York, but it's,
So that's the accent.
Yeah.
Puerto Rican New Yorker.
Yeah. And Italian, so it's like it's all in there. It's Brooklyn, it's
But you
Queens.
probably have the best food at every holiday.
Oh, absolutely. You don't get this big by accident, sweetheart. I mean, come on. But yeah, hearing about your experiences in New York, like, it's true. It's a safe space for queers, but like I had a very scary, big Puerto Rican dad that, kind of held me back in that respect. But once you get out from under that, then you do what you got to do. But I do love how that these legendary New York City queens had a hand in building you up. I think that's so fantastic.
It's like even the stories we hear from the 80s. Like, we know the whole scene, like with Sherry Vine, Jackie Beat, Mario Diaz, even, Michael Alec, like, all of these kind of things. But you were also studying at the same time this was going on. What were your best classes at AMDA? What were your worst classes? You were like, oh, girl, I just suck at that.
So, I mean, my best classes, I was just I was not like super into AMDA, believe it or not.
It's not for everybody.
It's not.
It's like the Disneyland of where you want to study.
Yeah. I definitely had some things that I was strong at, but when I was in AMDA, actually, I felt a lot of racial aggression, and that. All of them.
Because this was when you were 18.
Yeah, this was when I was 18.
It wasn't when Broadway was diverse the way it is now.
Yeah, like
I bet you the whole culture at AMDA is totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Like when I went to school there, like if you were black, you got songs from black musicals.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's do Dreamgirls.
Yeah,
we have
they
two
were
black kids.
You should cut. I had shoulder length hair when I moved to New York, and they were like,
"Did you really?"
Mm-hmm,
I have not seen one picture of that. Are those pictures
because
exist?
I'm mad that it doesn't exist anymore.
I bet you looked fierce.
It was cute, and my teachers convinced me that I needed to cut it because I wasn't marketable. Because
you weren't castable.
My hair looked too ethnic, is what I was always told. Which is something that a teacher would get fired for today.
Yeah,
100%.
But
at that time, they were being smart for what Broadway was at the time, and you probably couldn't get cast in every show.
Yeah. So in AMDA, like I didn't feel like I fully excelled in AMDA. I remember when I graduated, the head of my musical theater department came down the line to me and like my best friends. We were all standing by each other, and she goes one by one to each of them. She's like, "I hope you're ready for a super successful career. I know you're going to be on Broadway." And then she gets to me and she's like, "I hope you're ready to keep working on your craft."
Wow.
And I was just like,
she's actually here today. Please welcome her. Doesn't she feel stupid right now?
Real dumb. I mean,
teachers have a tough job because they obviously want to prepare their students, especially in entertainment, for the reality. Mm-hmm. But it's like, come on, like, let's break boundaries here. This is a chance to inspire. Now Broadway, like, look at the Into the Woods that toured and that was so popular, was so multiracial, so diverse, and it was so celebrated. It's like, yes, this is the point of theater.
Yeah, and the beautiful trans and non-binary actors who've been celebrated on Broadway in recent years is awesome. J. Harrison Ghee winning a Tony.
Yeah.
Like this, like the world is changing there too,
So do you think we need, and I want your opinion too, do you think we need a non-binary category at the Tonys, at the Oscars, at the Emmys? Ooh. Are we at that point yet?
Wow.
Because, some actors have turned down their nominations because there's not a non-binary.
It's really funny. I think the awards in general should just not be based on gender.
Right. I was going to say just best actor, period.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, but that's if Hollywood roles were equal. We know there's great women roles, but we know a lot of the good roles are still going to men. And we know there's some men actors that are not the best actors, but they're the personalities. And I'm going to get hate email like Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, even Liam Neeson. These are good actors, but they're always doing their stuff. Mm-hmm. How can you compare that to, like a Meryl Streep or an Olivia Colman? It's like, I'm glad women have their own category because these women are they're working 200% because we know they're getting paid 80% or 60% of what the men are earning.
Well, I feel like if the men can't compare, they just need to step their pussies up. But
I'm telling Robert De Niro, he's like, I'll step my pussy up. Okay, so let's talk about the New York scene, like you talked about, and you know the New York scene. It is so difficult to actually break in because it is very cliquey. It's very guarded for good reason. People worked hard to become big names in the nightlife. So when there's somebody new, it comes like, who the hell is that? Like, take a nap, you know? How were you able to break into it in such a big way? For your Drag Race fans, going to Drag Race was like, yeah, okay, this is a great blip on this huge career. But you came to Drag Race as this New York superstar. How were you able to break into that, and what set you apart from the other queens?
I mean, the mentorship that I had, Sahara, Deja Davenport, my drag mother.
What was it about you, do you think, that they were like, okay, we need to help this girl out, she's going to be a star?
I mean, I'm that girl.
It wasn't just the booty. It wasn't just the booty.
I mean, I also slept my way to the top.
Good girl.
Right? I think that I think that my strongest attribute in nightlife is that I believe that our safe spaces that we've created are for people to have fun, and I've always adjusted my career and the things that I create with, will people have fun with this? Like, and I was always, even if you didn't like my show, even if you didn't like my drag, I was just always such a good, fun person to be around. Like, there was times where I had some questionable drag choices, and I wasn't always great at makeup, or whatever. But like, I was a good time. My first parties in New York, I was booger the house down, but they were filled with people who just wanted to experience my light, and I always acknowledged that, and so I've always made that the center of my focus. It was like, I didn't necessarily want to be the most fashionable queen, or I didn't necessarily need to have the most tricks and death drops, even though I can do them, or whatever. I just wanted to make a persona that when everybody was around, they'd had a good time. And that was something that I experienced the first time I met Raja Gemini. And when I met Raja, I was like, that person, that energy, that's drag, And so she's a hero of mine. I'm sure I've told her this over a glass of wine or 18.
Girl, I drank with you on arenas and you don't even remember.
Okay, right? I remember glimpses.
I got a glimpse, I'll tell you that.
Oh!
But right after college, and I had a terrible time in college too, because I just never felt like, I never got picked for anything. It's like, I can do that. But I was, I was the thicker kid. I was Latino at like an almost all white school, and it's like, I just never got the chance. And it just gave me such disillusionment. And it's like, fuck theater, fuck music, fuck all that. And it's like, no. And what you did was like kind of turn around. So right after college, you booked the Broadway National Tour of Hairspray. As a young kid, touring in this great musical, going from city to city, I can imagine it was probably a double-edged sword. It's like, yes, you're learning your craft, you're in a Broadway national tour, but also, like, the naughty kid, like, our eyes are open to boys across the nation, drinks across the nation, having the cloud of, I'm in a Broadway national tour. What did you learn most about yourself as an actor, and what kind of, like, fun mistakes did you make? You're like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, but I did.
I mean, I was pretty much at the gay club in any city every time we checked in, to the point that, like, on our tour schedule, they, like, always put things in your itinerary, like good places to eat or whatever. And then, like, for me, it was like, and here's where the gay bar is. Because I was 21 and I was going to get drunk and find some wang, okay? I was.
How did you show up on time for all your stuff?
For the most part, I did.
Okay, so is that where some of the mistakes you made? You're like, you didn't make a performance?
For sure.
And we know Hairspray's not like a quiet show. You could just like sit in the back. You're like...
Right. There was one time that I was definitely full hungover, didn't think I was going on, and in Good Morning Baltimore, one of the houses that comes out hit a guy's foot, and then like I got a call like, you're going to the stage right now and getting your costume, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I can't tell if I'm lit or if I'm hungover. And I butchered that show so hard. I'm so sorry to everybody who was in the cast that night. Like, I was in the wrong spot during the whole Welcome to the 60s. Like,
You were in the 70s and they were in the 60s. Yeah.
literally had to have like a conversation with Actors Equity after
Is that true?
yeah, they were like, you've been written up, like you could be kicked out of the union, like kind of stuff like that.
That's entirely true. What I love is that you're able to share this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, oh, I made my mistakes or whatever. This is the reality when you're young and you get your first big opportunity is you can fuck it up because the allure of the nightlife is great. The allure of the sex life, drugs, alcohol, it all plays, even when you come to West Hollywood and, but it can affect the whole future of your career. And I'm glad that you shared that. It's a funny story, but we can learn from that too.
Yeah, it definitely snapped me together and got me together and helped me focus and prioritize what's important, And then I became a drag queen because drinking and sex are important.
They're job skills. They're
Right.
tricks of the trade.
Now, growing up in New York, were you like a Broadway boy? Did you see like all the Broadway shows or no?
Not really.
That wasn't your scene?
No, I mean, I
A
just...
gay man not into Broadway?
I know. I discovered it kind of... I mean, they used to do this Broadway kind of fair on 42nd Street where you could, like, get tickets for free like it was a raffle because...
Not any free tickets today.
That's what I mean. Broadway always was and still is ridiculously expensive. So it kind of wasn't in my price range growing up. So that's why maybe I would have liked it, but
This is my biggest complaint about Broadway. Now we have diverse casting. Now we're telling stories from independent... it's not just a Sondheim show. It's not just a Andrew Lloyd Webber show. And people can't afford to see it.
No.
The fact that Hamilton kind of set the bar is like, this is the new Broadway. We're going to look at characters a totally different way. We're going to look at casting a different way. But you won't be able to afford it. It's so ridiculous.
I know.
To me. Merrily, we roll along. Tickets are $400.
Wow.
Yeah.
$400.
Like, who can afford that? I remember when I moved to New York, my theater teacher telling me, he was like, if you live in New York and you don't go to see Broadway shows, why are you here? And I just thought that was the most elitist piece of bullshit ever. I was like, babe, I eat off the dollar menu every day. Like, how? That's because I live in New York.
So let's talk about your off-Broadway experience. The Electric Highway and the Orion Experience, both sci-fi type of pieces. I sci-fi?
I don't know. I think that I've always been out of this world.
Well, we've all seen Uranus.
I wrote the Electric Highway.
Yeah.
And
It was with your group.
with my band.
Yeah.
And I met the Orion Experience when recording with my band, and I actually still to this day tour with the Orion Experience. I'm actually going to London with them next week, and we just opened up a new tour in LA on Saturday. The one that's going to London.
Why don't you let a bitch know?
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And Orion from the Orion Experience has always been a musical collaborator with me. We wrote Worship Me together. He wrote a song called Trouble for me, so we've always been really close. And when they started their show, the Orion Experience, I actually met him because I was doing karaoke at a little bar called No Parking in Washington Heights, which is the first gay bar in Washington Heights that I helped open with them. We had to like literally run home from the bar because that wasn't a place to open a gay bar, and now it's completely gentrified. That bar is now the Planet Fitness. That karaoke host Travis Geisler was directing this musical, and he's going on to assist and direct big huge Broadway projects and everything. And he called me, he was like, I have this role for you. She is a vampire sorceress alien queen.
That's up your alley.
I'm into it.
And I was just like, hey, let's go, it's always been that. But I've also always seen, because my experiences in life always felt so othered, I've always seen Honey as that as well. Like I've never been trying to do exactly what's happening, but always in my own lane. So of course people would see that as something otherworldly.
Now, performing off Broadway is, that's an experience because as an actor, from what I've heard, you're able to really like explore. It's not like the pressure of Broadway. We got to hit everything. Like you're able to explore. You also did Trinkets, which is about the lives of transsexual sex workers in Manhattan's meatpacking district in the 90s. Not the big sci-fi type musical.
No.
You played Diva, a veteran prostitute. What was it like to kind of take all of the pageantry away, so to speak, and then work on a role like this in a pretty sobering show?
Yeah, it was. The beautiful thing about Trinkets is it was written by Paul Alexander, who's lived in the meatpacking district by the transgender, whole stroll for 25, 30 years maybe. Queer icon, part of the Ones, wrote for George Michael. Like everybody, huge. He just had this like wealth of knowledge, and so I would hang out with him all the time and like discover stories from the past and like actually meet some former girls. And it was really cool because I had all of that acting training, and so for the first time, I was not putting on this like I'm a vampire sex queen. I was like, oh, I can play real people and have like intimate heart-to-heart moments, and that helped my drag in so many ways because it gave me the ability to deliver a real message that people can sometimes relate to better than over-the-top sci-fi queen.
And it kind of brought you back to your early beginnings, talking about social injustice as a kid. I know your mom helped you rap through some of your stuff.
Yeah.
So to kind of come back and strip that away, it's like, yeah, this is where our community comes from.
Yeah, growing up, my mom, I was a little quiet and I just didn't know how to express myself.
Well, that changed.
Hello, right? And my mom, in the 80s and 90s, she was kind of a tomboy, and she would stand on the corner and rap with her friends, and they would freestyle. And so she would do that occasionally with me, and I kind of got good at it as a kid. We would do it walking home from school, and it was something she realized that I really enjoyed. So when she would try to get me to speak about my feelings to her or tell her what was going on in my life, she'd be like, all right, how about this? You can curse, you can say anything you want to, as long as it rhymes.
How smart is that?
She used it to break me out of my box, and cut to I'm writing songs for me in Alaska. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
Now, you did go through this shift. Honey was kind of androgynous, and she became more feminine. What was that shift? Was that just your evolution of drag, or what was that shift about?
I think that the beginnings of my drag were me trying to discover my actual identity, and the more I became clear and comfortable with my gender expression, the more I wanted Honey to be a woman. And I was like, the more I out of drag as Honey, because I always go by Honey, out of drag and in drag, and the more out of drag that I felt secure enough to be myself, the things that I used to wear on stage, that was what I wanted to wear to the grocery store for real. I was like, but now what do I want to wear on stage? If I want to wear that to the grocery store, I was like, okay, now I want to wear a gown on stage. And I started to explore that more. And I started to explore pageantry more. My first pageant was Miss Stonewall, and I really, really wanted to be Miss Stonewall because of what it means for our queer history. And I lost that pageant 3 times before winning it on my 4th, because I did win. And
you have many crowns, 18 crowns, right?
19 now.
19 crowns, bitch.
The current reigning Miss Southern California Continental.
Okay. Where do you keep all your crowns? When you walk in, are they all just all there?
So I used to in New York, and then, oh my gosh, she's going to be so mad about this. When I went to Drag Race, my partner...
there we go. Look at that.
Yeah, that's my current title.
She's polished, girl.
Wow.
When I went to Drag Race... I had a whole bunch of stuff at my former assistant's house, and my partner was tasked with getting it all back into my storage unit because obviously my drag couldn't fit in my tiny New York apartment. So he had to get everything back into my storage unit, and he set boxes of things on top of my box of crowns, crushing most of them.
Oh no!
Oh, I still have all the shattered pieces. Don't worry. And I hope one.
That's
day
the name of your next EP is Shattered Pieces.
Shattered pieces. And he broke all of them. So I don't have many of them still intact. But I still have all of the titles, and
the memories live on.
Yeah, and a plastic crown doesn't make you a queen. So
True.
I love that.
That is true.
I love that. We're not going to talk too much about Drag Race because you've been interviewed about Drag Race over and over and over. But I want your fans and I want our audience to really know how you came to Drag Race. You were almost homeless. Mm-hmm. You had to borrow money from people to put your looks together to even get there. You were coming to the show with a lot of stress.
yeah.
You were also coming to the show with this huge resume already. It's like, yes, I'm doing the show, but do I need the show to make me me? Nope. Whereas some queens we know, it's like, if I don't do this, then it's just not going to happen for me.
Yeah.
Can you talk about kind of that preparation where you got this dichotomy of financial, and I hate the fact, I mean, I love that drag has become so commercial, but I also do not like the fact that if you don't have money, it's almost, and I hate to say it, it's almost impossible to break in. Mm-hmm. That has changed because there used to be drag queens that would put on a garbage bag and they'd be Barbra Streisand because they'd be inventive. Mm-hmm. I think our creativity has kind of decreased as the commercialism has increased because now we have stylists that make us who we are. Anyway, that's a rant. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of gathered that courage knowing that, like, God, I'm not in a good place in my life, but I'm going to go ahead and film this reality show. And you auditioned 8 times, right?
Yeah, see, the thing is, before I was a thing, I was auditioning. I had a conversation with Sahara before she passed, and I had submitted the tape, and I was considering submitting more, thinking that maybe I was getting to a place where I might not need it, and whatever. And our very last conversation was, don't you ever not take an opportunity. She was like, this is just an opportunity. This is a billboard for your drag. This is just a springboard for everything you got going on. And even though I was in the place that I was in New York, I'd still occasionally go up for like a movie role or a theater role. And they were like, well, we're not going to put you in it because we have Bob the Drag Queen who was just on Drag Race and they're getting this role. So I definitely felt like there was a ceiling that I wasn't going to break without signing up for that program. And it definitely came in the hardest time, one of the hardest times of my life. I was homeless. My marriage, which I've been happily married for 10 years, together with him for 12. We were on the rocks. But
the fact that you're open and you talk about this, there's no relationship that's perfect. Mm-hmm. That relationships are hard work. And I know you guys kind of have like a long distance relationship.
And on top of all of that, I was struggling with a huge cocaine addiction before Drag Race.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And I just didn't know a way out. And I actually, before season 11, told myself, after my audition tape for season 10, that was like it. I gave it the try. It was fine. I was done. I wasn't going to get on it. And I love my life and I love my career and I was just going to go ahead about my things. And then I got a call and they were like, hey, are you not submitting a tape for season 11? And I was like,
they had you pegged.
And I was like, no, I'm not going to submit a tape this season because I've literally poured my life into making these 20-minute audition tapes. By the way, they're super easy now. They're not even as hard as they were. They changed them right after my season. It was only going to be challenging for me.
It's because some drag queens don't know how to
anyway,
all that. Yep.
So I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to give myself a year off. And then the casting director goes, that's such a bad idea. This could have been your turn.
Wow.
The fact that they picked up the phone and like
called
you.
I was like, what are you calling me for? Okay, fine. I'll make a tape in my season 11 tape. I promise you, I made that shit in 2 nights. There was zero thought really put behind it. I just was like, whatever. If you're calling me, you must want me.
Yeah.
So let me just give you me. And it was honest. It was the most honest thing that I ever did. And it taught me a really valuable lesson. Sometimes our best entertainment, sometimes our best activism, sometimes our best leadership comes when we're just existing. When we allow ourselves to just like say, I'm enough.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. There's a large number of our community that is not part of the entertainment community. Like, they're leading their normal lives and they're being their, authentic self. I think as commercial, even with our LGBTQ programming, even Bros the movie, and I don't want to get any more hate email. It's like I think we've lost that kind of sincerity and that kind of what makes us us. It's like, okay, commercial, what's going to sell? And I think it's because of TikTok, it's because of Instagram. It's like, what hashtags are going to sell? What one-liners are going to sell?
Yeah,
and it's like, we're real people.
I would even say even the most successful girls off of Drag Race, they're the most authentic. Look at Sasha Colby. She was 150%. That is Sasha Colby. I mean, Bob the Drag Queen. All the winners, they were themselves. So, like, the prepackaged girls, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of the show. I love it, whatever.
100% fan of the show. We have many of them on the show all the time.
But, I saw Miss Coco Peru this weekend. Talk about legendary. You know what I'm saying? I saw Shakira, last year. She doesn't age. I can't
I know, right?
Varla Jean Merriman. I saw her this summer. These are the girls that the kids don't know about and don't care to know about, which is sad because it's not just who's presented on the TV show as much as I love it and I'm a fan of it. So no shade, but
I wish Drag Race would do one episode where they bring in icons like that to mentor.
Coco actually mentioned that. She was like, they don't want us. She was like, they are 16 seasons in. They do not want us. Just Lady Bunny for the comedy of her and Rue doing drugs in the East Village together. That's the only reason.
That's probably why Rue's like, I don't need any of the stories.
But I had read, is it true that Rue gave you your name?
Yeah.
It was a mistake, right?
It was a mistake.
Talk about it. This is a really fun story.
So it was at a book signing, and I had a dance group called the Hunties that I had developed after Dancing with Peppermint. And I hadn't really broken into drag, but me and my good friend, like a brother, Antoine, we would dance back up for Sherry Vine and Peppermint and Shaquita and everyone. And we were like the Hunties. We were marketing ourselves as that. And I went to a book signing, and I asked her to sign my book to the Hunties. And, Grandma Paul didn't hear me straight. And she signs this book, to Honey. And a week later, my friend who I had this group with, he decides, maybe I want to focus more on my musical theater career, and drag's not necessarily, or working for drag queens is not necessarily the direction I want to go. And I was like, I respect that, totally cool. But this club is calling, and they got $500 for us. And I need this $500. So I'm going to take that. You cannot. And I called her back. I was like, yeah, I'll be there, and I'll have tons of backup dancers, and I got routines and yada, yada, yada. And they go, well, if you're not the Hunties, then who are you? And I'm looking at this book, and I was like, oh, I'm just Honey.
That's great.
I mean, that's history writing itself.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like destiny writing itself. I don't have a story like that.
I know.
Can I just put Alex? I'm like, Alexander. So part of being your authentic self, and we're going to talk about this because it's such a hot topic, you've never shied away from your sexuality.
No.
We've seen your booty. You had a fans account.
I haven't had an OnlyFans account yet.
No, you've had a drag for fans.
Drag for fans, but it was more drag than for...
We saw stuff.
Okay.
We know you might be on Grindr sometimes.
Always.
We might know you might have been with some of my friends or some of the fans that emailed us.
Ooh.
Nobody has a complaint, by the way. I'll tell you that. Because sometimes I'll get, they have a weird dick or something. I'm like, I didn't get one of those emails.
And just so you know, bears love honey. Okay.
I was going to say, I see some of that fur pink
Everybody
through
loves
Miss Honey. I was like,
Ina Garten loves honey. Okay. If you can't buy organic, store-bought's okay. So, but I want to know, the whole drag community is under attack.
Yeah.
For being sexual perverts and that we're grooming children. Should we still be celebrating our sexuality in such a visible way when the and I'm playing devil's advocate, by the way, because this is the comment that people are saying, when the conservative communities are just waiting for us to make a wrong move, should sexuality still be such a big part of the drag community?
Well, two things. A, I'm a good person and I trust myself, so I don't think that any of my sexual desires are an abomination or anything wrong. And because all of mine are with consenting adults, and as much as I've always preached sexual liberation that's always been something that's very much on the forefront of everything that I have to say about that. I don't even necessarily like kids.
Well, I want to know, like, let's just be honest. Can't stand them.
Like a friend of mine asked me, do you know any black teenagers who I can invite to this screening? I was like, I don't know any teenagers. Period.
I don't hang out with teenagers. I don't
know any teenagers. I don't know anyone at all. That's not, no. So I think it's important to still be sexual as well, because a huge part of the queer liberation movement is that our sexuality is not wrong. And the reality of the fact is that every single person you pass on the streets, every single day of your life, was created from sex. It's the least weird thing in this world.
And everybody's watched porn, by the way. Everybody's watched porn.
I hope.
I mean,
No, but everybody literally has watched porn.
Yeah, if you haven't, that's really fucking sad.
yeah.
I can imagine. I mean, there's probably some people. There might be somebody who hasn't listened to Renaissance.
Well, and even like with Bear World Magazine, you guys have partnered with. There's a sexy side coming, or it's there.
We'll be working with Bear Magazine, which was the big magazine in the 80s and 90s that kind of gave like birth to the bear culture or whatever. So it's changed hands a few times, and now we'll be sharing content with them and them with us, but in a family-friendly way. But it'll be revamped to reflect the time. So more diverse. Body types, more diverse people, period, because Bear was really good at featuring like muscly white guys, so we're already like, working with them to feature, different ethnicities, different races, and different body types. So, it's important. And just like while we're on the topic of grooming, it's interesting that they're going after drag queens. It's just like, how about...
Why drag queens? That's what I don't understand.
It's an easy target, I think. And then, like, with kids, they're like, oh, is that your girlfriend? When it's like a little boy and a little girl playing together, that's grooming. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why are you sexualizing a play date between two 2-year-olds? Like...
And we're talking about, like, a drag performer showing their ass.
Right.
Whereas every PG-13 movie, when I was growing up, had tits in it.
Definitely.
I'm like, how is that not... That's okay.
And drag queens are not inviting your fucking children to the show.
Right.
Yes.
They probably don't want them.
It's like you're trying to live your fantasy. Like, leave the kids at home then. Like,
Yeah.
Now, am I right in thinking that the drag community is embracing their sexuality more? We're seeing more and more drag queens, even from the Drag Race family, show more skin, do more provocative videos, kind of celebrate, like, yeah, this is my ass, this is my bulge, this is like...
Right.
That's happening, right?
I agree. Yeah, I think that it's a side effect of what RuPaul created, and that she would always have a presence in and out of drag. And so when Drag Race started, there were a lot of queens. You never got to see Peppermint out of drag. Most people haven't ever seen Lady Bunny out of drag. It looks like the Quaker Oats man.
This is not a lie.
It's not a lie.
It's not a lie.
But drag queens, when I was growing up in New York City, drag queens didn't go out of drag.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it wasn't even a thing. And what Drag Race did was it started to celebrate some of our actual real life personas as well. And I know for me, one of the biggest embraces I've gotten from the show, not just, my drag or my skills, but like when I walk back on screen with a beard, I got celebrated as a person outside of drag.
Yeah.
And getting that validation and celebration, it created a space for us to then be like, oh, bitch, I'm hot. Because there was a time in our history, I'm sure we know, I'm 38 years old, where like screwing a drag queen was like no. Dating a drag queen was a
Or
double
it was
no.
a fetish.
right.
Or
It was
a
an extreme fetish. It's like, don't take the wig off. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh.
but I'm this person.
And now with what Drag Race was created, we've become rock stars.
Yeah.
We're modern day rock stars. And that's always had a sexual,
For
100%.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Mighty Legendary. Your partnership with Hey Mistr, which it's an online resource for prep. If you're not on prep, get on prep. It's so easy. They couldn't make it easier. how did this opportunity come about? What was it like working with Alaska? Because I've heard different things about working with Alaska.
Really?
Yeah.
So Alaska is really cool. I think she's super cool and down to earth, or whatever, down to whatever planet she's from. I've always had a really easy time hanging out with her. My first Christmas in LA, my photographer friend David Loff took me to a Christmas party at Bitch Pudding's house from Dragula.
We love Bitch Pudding.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And Alaska was there, and that's when I first met Alaska. And we talked, and she was chill. She wasn't, like, weird or anything. Like, I had just done Drag Race, and she was, like, chill and normal. And then I think there was, like, a night at, like, Precinct where she was performing, Jackie Beat was performing, and Sherry Vine was performing, and I was DJing, and we were in the dressing room.
This is like, if you are new to the drag scene, like, this is Icon Night.
Right, it was Icon Night down, and we were in a dressing room, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to come see whatever show you're doing. She was like, okay, text me, and I was like, text you? Like, bitch, I ain't got your number. And she goes in the dressing room, she says, Honey Davenport should have my phone number, and leaves. Right? So somebody
That's like
gave
a challenge. It's like, let's see you rise to the occasion.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
And so, somebody gave me her number, and I've always taken that friendship very kindly because I admire her work, and I've never wanted our friendship to be about work, because that could easily be seen as me trying to ride a coattail or something like that.
It's so hard to make friends when you are who you are, when she is who she is,
right.
Because it's like, do they like me? Do they want to just step up?
Right.
Yeah.
I always had that feeling. I text pretty closely with Trixie, and I'm always like, I want to ask Trixie to do something with me, like artistically.
Like give a discount on her $500 a night hotel?
Well, I mean, it's worth it.
I mean,
it's worth it.
I don't get a Broadway show. I get a thrift store that I got to pay more money for.
I love the Trixie Motel. I've never left
I'm joking,
sober.
of course. But you don't even get like a show.
I'm not. I love you, Trixie, but girl, come on.
And she's like, buy my merch, $40 for an eyelash.
But I've always struggled with, like, do you ask your friends who are successful, and in some cases more successful than you, to create with you? But I, like, create every day. So, like, yeah. And so I was texting with Alaska after I wrote the original version of Mighty Legendary, like, hey, what do you think of this track? And and funny story, I was sitting with David Laff as I was doing it. I was texting her, what do you think of it? And she's like, oh my gosh, this is really good. And then David was like, you should just ask her to be on the remix. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to cross that line. I don't want to cross that boundary. But then I was just like,
but why not?
Right, because you don't ever want your friends to feel used.
But if they're your friends, they're not going to feel used.
Yeah.
Unless you're not being a sincere friend to begin with.
Exactly. And that was the response I got from her. It was like, oh, hell yeah. Like, when do you want to do it? What do you want to do? And I was like, okay, well, I want to do this and I want to do that. And so when I got her in the studio and, I originally was like, well, would you like to write your verse? And, she's a super busy woman. And so I said, would you like to write a verse in this song? And she's like, yeah, I'll be on your song. And I'm like waiting for a verse back. And I never got a verse back. And so it's like a day before we're going into the studio. And I was like, bitch, I'm about to write this verse in the style of Alaska. And so I was like,
plus, you know rap. You've been doing it since you were a kid.
Right, and I know Alaska.
Yeah.
So, because I've known her, for a very long time before we ever created something together. And so I did. And once I had Alaska on the track, the opportunities really opened up for me because I was able to get, the music video, which was a dream come true, made by Ron Katagiri, it's a director who I've been wanting to work with again since he made...
It looks gorgeous.
Thank you. He also made Love Is God with me in Manila, and I'm still paying for that video. It was so expensive. I was like, I don't ever think I can do this again. And he was like, oh, as long as, we find you some kind of sponsorship, then you can make it happen. And I was like, well, we have to find sponsorship from somebody who I want to align myself with in the queer community.
Yep.
And Mistr is that. I actually recently, last week, switched over to getting my prep from Mistr because I traveled too much to go.
It's so easy, you guys.
Yeah,
it's so easy.
You can prick your finger right in your bathroom. Boom, 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 boom. And then it's like, and then boom, 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 and you're good.
And then you can boom, boom, boom.
And you can boom, boom, boom.
They are doing great things. I didn't know that they were aligned with that. They're also a sponsor of the Bear World Magazine Awards. So
Yeah.
they're really jumping in on all different parts of the community. So that's amazing.
I said to someone earlier this week, I said, it's really cool because they're not only saving our bodies, but they're also stepping in and helping further our art and our media and our presence in the world. So, like, they're helping us stop from dying and helping us live.
And they're taking the stigma away in a fun way that we can communicate. It's like, we have gay sex. We just do.
Yeah.
I mean, just like everybody just has sex.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. So what does mighty legendary mean? Like, what's the theme of the song?
So, here's how it came about. I wanted to do a pageant. I hadn't done a pageant in a very long time.
And your crowns were in smithereens. You're like, I need some replacements.
I want a new one. Oh my God. And I had talked to the legendary pageant queen, Fantasia Lamour, who lives out here in California. And I was like, one of these days, I'm going to go back to Continental. I'm going to compete for Continental again. She was like, if you ever want to go to Continental, you better come to my prelim. And I was like, yeah, why am I saying one of these days? Why don't I do it now? So
Say yes.
Right. So I started prepping for my prelim. And I had everything in line. I had my gown finished. I had my dancers and my talent. I had hotel rooms booked and everything, to the point that I almost had no more money left. And then my agent calls me and he's like, I have this booking for you in Pennsylvania the night before for more money than you've ever made. Oh. And I was like, okay, so I guess I'm pulling out of the pageant because there's no way I could, come from random bubblefuck Pennsylvania and get to San Diego in time for this pageant at 11 a.m. the next day. Now, how am I going to do that? And, everybody was just like, well, if you could do it, that would be really sickening. And I was like, yeah, that would be like really fucking legendary to like just get off a plane and win a pageant. And so well, it is 3 hours ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the math right now.
Right?
I'm just like,
it's possible.
I had to get on a tiny little plane to Washington, D.C., and then a bigger plane, and I landed in San Diego. The interview was starting at 11:30. I landed at 11:15.
Oh my God.
I didn't even get my suitcases and bags out of the airport. My best friend in the whole entire world, Safira Cristal, picked me up in my car at the airport with my suit pressed for interview. I jumped in the car. I put on my suit. I went to interview. I won the entire pageant. And the only thing I kept saying after the pageant was, that was so legendary. That was very, very legendary. And I just kept saying that for days. And then I was like, that's a song.
Yeah.
That's a song. You know what I'm saying? And it was something Safira said to me. She was like, they kind of already call you the legendary Honey Davenport. Do something fucking legendary. Like, get off a plane and win a pageant, bitch. And I did.
You're like, done.
Done.
That's a crazy story. That's also a good friend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your friends should do for you what you are willing to do for them. I mean, that's a really good friend.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of now who would do that for me, and I'm like, maybe 3 people that are my friends.
Well, we had a plan, too, in that she wanted to compete for a pageant in New Jersey called Miss Paradise. And I have won Miss Paradise. And so I was like, all right, bet. We had already had that set in line, too. Safira already had a plane ticket to come over here. And that was already going to happen. And I was like, all right, I will fly to Jersey. I will help you and dress you and get you ready for your pageant.
There we go.
And you will fly to San Diego and you'll help me and dress me and get me ready for my pageant. We'll tag team it out together. Just about everything that I've done in my career since I met Safira Cristal has gone through her ears. And just about everything that she's done in her career since she met me has gone through me. That's my best friend in the whole world. And we really hold each other to a really high standard. We don't let each other give up.
Yeah.
Is she from Philly, by the way?
She is from Philly.
I've seen her perform. She is one of mine and Richard's absolute favorite drag performers.
She's one of the best drag queens in the entire world.
Oh my God, yeah. I was just like, Richard's going to be so excited.
And I heard you really do give it all with your tag teaming.
I mean, we used to call that the sister sandwich back in the day. And
oh, man.
Only a few people who have ever gotten that experience. And if they survive,
They can't walk
to tell
now.
the day,
Yeah, no,
right?
they're like, I'm in a wheelchair now. Okay, so we have to wrap up, but I want to throw it back. We're entering Halloween season with Stan the Mechanic. I want to know what your favorite horror films are and the gayest part of them are. So Stan the Mechanic, since you're the expert, like, what are your top 2 favorite
My top two, my favorite of all time is Halloween 1978, but I'm going to choose other ones because that is too, like, on the nose. So if you're looking for good...
But if that's it, then
I mean,
that's it.
But in terms of queerness, they didn't introduce any queerness until Halloween Kills, which just came out 2 years ago. So
you don't think Michael Myers, like, with the flawless skin and, like... He just, he's a loner.
Big knife, like, I don't know, his big phallic knife. But one great queer horror film that I've seen is something called Death Drop Gorgeous, and I keep shouting them out. It's streaming on Shudder. It's an independent film with guys that are bearish, but it's a drag queen serial killer movie. Ooh. So, yes, starring the queen is Miss Gloria Hole, and I traveled to P-Town just to meet Peyton St. James, who played her.
Yeah, okay. I know
and she's on a quest for eternal youth, and that comes with the blood of, like, the twinks that are hanging out at the clubs in Providence, Rhode Island. So if you haven't seen that, that's a good one for this Halloween season. Yeah.
I mean, if you can get eternal youth from twinks, I'm never aging.
Honey.
Okay.
But you have to, like, sit and have dinner with them, and they're like,
oh,
that's the most painful part.
She just kills them, so,
Thank God.
Relatable.
They're like, did you watch MTV this week? No, I didn't. I literally went on a date recently, and they didn't know who Judy Garland was, and I was just like,
we're done.
Yeah.
And we're done.
Check.
Okay, so mine is Exorcist and Midsommar, and you're going to be like, well, they're not queer films. Exorcist is so queer. Mm-hmm. We have the hot priest who's trying to find his identity. He's affixed to his mom. And then, Regan, when she gets all possessed, is pretty queer in that she's, like, shouting out, like, sassy one-liners, and she's reading them for filth. And then we have Ellen Burstyn, who is a huge diva in my mind. She's like a gay. So I think it's pretty gay. Mm-hmm. And then Midsommar, we have all the pageantry, we have the colors, it's pretty gay. And then the one guy, when he's, like, sleeping with, that's hot. There's just this whatever. So that's mine.
Yeah.
Strong choices.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Okay, so I do love horror movies. I enjoy them. I haven't, like, really invested in them to, like, know a whole bunch. And this is gonna seem super cliche, but, like, I can't tell you how many thousands of times I've watched The Craft. Like, okay.
100%. Did you watch the reboot? Which was made by and for the queer community, by the way.
Oh, I did not watch that. Is it good?
God, I don't
want to say anything.
That. I'm sorry.
What?
Because I heard such bad things about it.
I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want.
I also really like.
It was literally made by our community for our community.
Oh wow! So we need to go check it out.
It's very queer. It's not good.
Oh, that sucks.
But The Craft, it's so gay.
The Craft is so gay. It's so right. Right?
Yeah.
I also like
Nancy. She's like
a lesbian icon.
She's everybody's queer. Like, the gays wanted to be her. The girls wanted to sleep with her. Like,
yeah. And if you've ever seen Morgan McMichael's Nancy from fucking...
Oh, they're the same person.
Same.
Especially after he's had a few to drink.
Oh, gosh.
You cannot bind me.
We've been trying to for some time.
That's a very queer film, though.
Yeah.
But it had to do with, like, finding your identity and who are you, and you can be your own. I love that. All right, guys. I have still pages of questions we got. This is how it happens on the Rocks. Okay. Tell everybody where they can find and follow you, John Hernandez.
Yes, please follow at Bear World Mag on Insta and Twitter, please. And my personal account related to that is at John_BWM. And if you want,
not that you can tag you or message you or anything. She exclusive.
She is.
Yeah,
but
right?
no, that's all changing. And then if you want to check out my horror hosting stuff, it's stanthemechanic.com and at stanthemechanic on Instagram and Twitter.
And it's so fun. Mm-hmm. All right, honey.
Well, you can find me at Honey Davenport Official on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, which is a deep, dark hole into my brain.
I'm not going to make a joke with that.
And you can find me on X or whatever Twitter has become, even though I don't want to ally myself to Elon Musk, at honey_Davenport, only because occasionally you can see under my clothing.
Oh.
Yes, you can. It's quite popular. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen, gentle people.
Thank you.
Yes. What a fun show. We didn't even get to cover so much. But there's so many facets to you, and I'm glad that, fans are discovering that and that you're working so hard. You really established your brand outside of Drag Race. Like I said, Drag Race is a fun point, and that's it. And you have this whole other...
Yeah,
Yep.
if you're smart enough, for any queen thinking about auditioning for Drag Race or any queen who might be doing it or whatever, just use it as a trampoline. I'm like super thankful that RuPaul's created opportunity for us to be seen, but that's not what's legendary about me. What's legendary about me is all of the things that I did with that increase she gave to my career.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, that's all, folks. It's always a grab bag of fun here every weekend on The Rocks. Big thank you to our engineer, Tony Sweet, our social media clip editor, Alexis Mendez. We tape this at UBN Go Studios for all of your podcast needs. Please like, share, subscribe so we can continue bringing this fabulous programming coming your way for free. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, stay sexy, and if you drink, stay tipsy. Except Shannon Bador.
This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.